Steelers fans, imagine all the world's greatest songs about the world's greatest football team in a once-in-a-lifetime collection. What Jin's Talking About presents Steelers Songs Volume 1. 30 Pittsburgh songs, all about the black and gold. From Mike Tomlin
the standard is the standard when you're listening to Tomlin
to Russell Wilson.
Let Russ cook, oh let him soar through skies of black and gold.
And Cam Hayward.
Cam, don't go to Cleveland.
Get the Steelers Songs collection on 2 CDs or 2 cassettes for just $26.99.
Who is gonna catch the ball?
Or completely free on your favorite streaming service.
You say you're black and gold, but your face are full of it.
That's right, iTunes, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio.
3 more years. Tomlin stays for 3 more years.
These songs will have you reaching for your terrible towel. Satisfaction guaranteed. Steelers Songs Volume 1 is not sold in stores.
No, we don't want no HBO.
So don't be a jagoff. Listen to Steelers Songs Volume 1 now. Only from What Jin's Talking About. The conversation about the Steelers conversation.
You can see the black and gold when we're in the Super Bowl.
B94.
That's what I dread. So keep our cubies off the sled. See, Russell Wilson had his calf to a drill he shouldn't have. That Browns and Bengals gonna laugh. Steelers Nation's getting mad. So keep our cubies off the sled. Did you hear what my plan said? You got us users full of jets, so keep our cubies off the sled. Let Russell throw, let Russell cook, but don't give those sleds a single look. Keep our cubies off the sled. So keep our cubies off the sled. Keep our cubies off the sled. So keep our cubies off the sled.
B94.
The pads are on, the helmets fit. It's time to block, it's time to hit. Cams in place, make it 2, and TJ knows exactly what to do. St. Vincent's in full swing. It's time to get our 7th ring. Watch the Eagles run, watch Russell throw. So many places for the ball to go. The night is young, but they can fight. Can't wait to see them under the black in black with Air Force Ones. Arthur Smith's mustache has just begun, and Porter Jr. is far from done. St. Vincent's in full swing. It's time to get our 7-3. St. Vincent's in full swing. It's time to get our 7-3.
B-94. Sound the battle cry. Battle cry, battle cry. Boots on the field, yeah. We make some noise. We make noise. We make noise. The black and gold swarms with a heart of steel. Of steel, of steel, of steel. Tomlin's at the helm. At the helm, at the helm. And it's all so real. So real, so real, so real. Cause I'm watching. Watching, watching, watching. And I'm leading. Leading, leading, leading. And I'm winning. I'm with the team I'm rooting for. I'm strategizing. Strategize, strategize. Never quitting. Quitting. Black and yellow. Flowing through my core. Cause it's crunch time. Crunch time, crunch time, crunch time. And the steel curtain. Whoa, curtain, curtain, curtain. We blitzing. With the force, we're bringing more. I'm commanding. I'm command. Steel spine vision. Vision, vision, vision. Steel city. Pumping in my soul. We got the power. Power, power. In every hour. Hour. Pittsburgh rushes in. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Defense like iron, like iron. Positions firing, firing. But we're here to win. We're here to dominate.
I'm not gonna worry about your level of concern.
We talking about Twitter.
Think of how stupid the average person is, and then realize half of them are stupider than that.
Training camp is Kennywood for me.
You better be willing to do unique things in order to expect unique results. And that's just life.
You guys are funny sometimes.
We mock ourselves.
All right, we're fully in pads. Well, maybe not shoulder pads, but maybe I'm wearing another type of pad. I don't... Oh, stop the music! It's time for your hot and toxic Steelers takes. You know, it's like, forget about the training camp fights. The real fight is here between us and these toxic takes. I'm a Landon Roberts. No, it's what Jin's talking about. The conversation about the Steelers' social media conversation. I'm Kyle Kreis in the Stairway to Seven shirt again. Do I only have one shirt on these days? Across from me, also in his uniform,
right?
It's Greg Benevent.
Hello! At this point, I just have one shirt, too. I finally found a shirt I consistently like for this until I get too cold.
I was going to wear, I almost broke out the Juju Karma shirt. Karma over Perfect, but then I was just like, a little too tight around my...
Well, I mean, that might also not be like a training camp shirt, but I don't know. Maybe it is following the training camp fight. Now, I don't know.
Yeah. It's rough and tumble out these days, and I'm talking about the takes. It's like, we weren't even in pads yet, and the takes were like
full contact.
Oh my gosh. And you'll find out. Let's see. Coming up in today's show.
Okay.
We got well, you know, I cannot get over one of the Hall of Honor selections. You know, not that they're all deserving. You know,
Right.
sure, there could be 200 Steelers in there.
Yes.
But I just thought this year they didn't get it right. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the Tomlin love. I love when it's not Tomlin hate for once.
Okay,
And
great.
we've got a week of Tomlin love out there.
Hey.
So we'll get to that, and maybe the must eat pizza if you're out in Latrobe.
Okay.
I know some of our listeners were at training camp this week. I got caught in the
Great.
rain, so
Aw.
I told them, I was like, you got to stop and try this pizza. We'll see if we got any reviews. Speaking of reviews, we're looking for reviews on iTunes and subscribers on YouTube. If I can find your comment, then you'll be getting the running for some of our giveaways. We've got the Dick LeBeau book, Legendary. I've got Kirkland's children's book, if you got the kids.
Hey.
And coming in the mail is going to be the new Myron Cope biography,
Hey.
Behind the Yoy.
Is that really the name?
That is the name.
Wow.
Behind the Yoy.
Behind the Yoy.
So lots of things to win. And we need your reviews on iTunes to get that. Yeah, double the review gets
2
you
reviews.
to the
Top of the queue.
yeah. All right, enough caucus. Let's get to, because there's a ton of toxic tweets. Let's start it off with, what are we talking about first? Let's talk about. It's a drum roll, please.
It's my quarterback.
Quarterback takes.
Okay.
Starting with at Michael Beck 56. Michael Beck. Not even 7 days into, 8 days into camp?
Okay.
At some point, Justin Fields is going to take the pole position. We knew the quarterback. We thought the media was going to run with the quarterback battle, but it didn't even take. I think it took 1 day, 2 days, and we're getting takes like this. Justin Fields is going to take the pole position. There were so many this week that I don't know. Am I starting to be convinced somewhat of?
Well, one, propaganda wears down everyone. That's how it works. And two, we predicted this in May. In April, I forget if it was Carbali, but it was him and certainly many other people that all said some variation of the same thing, which was that Justin Fields is going to make 2 or 3 just amazing plays in practice, and as soon as he does that, you're going to have a whole bevy of people say that he should be the starter. And that's exactly what happened. That word for word, play for play, that's what occurred.
We can't help ourselves. We said going in, can't be fooled by preseason, can't be fooled by practice. Russ is in the pole position. Russ is the starter, and then first day of practice. Oh yeah,
Right.
it's Fields time. It's Fields time.
Well, I will say, the one thing I will say is that the first few practices, there were a lot of Fields looks inconsistent out there. And then in the last 48 to 72 hours, it changed because I guess Fields just had an amazing practice. And then after that, even more of these takes came out because I guess he had just a really good practice, which is great, which is good, but is, as I cannot stress enough, a really good practice.
Yeah, we're talking about practice. Okay, well, all right, we'll get to the tweets. Fine. Let's move on to by Josh Carney. Josh Carney. According to ESPN's Dan Graziano, the Steelers are open-minded to Justin Fields winning the starting QB job this summer. Open-minded.
Open-minded.
Ooh, is the door opening? I think they were probably always open-minded, or
Yeah.
were they?
Well, I think I'd like to think the team is always open-minded. I mean, hey, if this guy's really good, he should start because we're a football team and not a family. Yeah, that makes sense. So I can see being open-minded. Sure, if you go out there and are amazing, we'll think about it. But I keep coming back to the training camp of Kenny's rookie year where we'd see remember the Jacksonville game where Kenny looked great in the second quarter and looked better than all the others and all that. And still, it was easily Mitch was the starter. And I kind of think that's where we are now. Obviously, I'm not predicting anything for the future with the Steelers quarterbacks because I've been alive for the last few years. But yeah, I do think they're open-minded, just as they would be for anyone. But Russ is still the guy up until the very moment he isn't.
Don't we have to at least compare the two? And if one guy hasn't practiced yet, there's nothing to compare to,
Right.
you know?
Right.
Well, you know, I didn't screw my takes. How about at Mad Hurrikaja, Ryan Slowpace. I love Russell Wilson, but he just lost the job. Let's move on, Steelers. Starting Fields headlines now, and we'll get the S show over with. Usually, I don't know. Sometimes they say the starter can't lose the job by injury, but sometimes that is the case. You know what? But not in the first week of camp.
Not in the first week of camp, and not for the quarterback. I mean, I couldn't help but giggle. We got this. Russell Wilson just lost the job after 4 practices from Ryan Slowpace. Nothing slow about this at all. Ryan galloping pace to the hot take. No, I liked what you just said about the comparison. Before I give Justin Fields the starting job, I would like to see Russell Wilson throw a pass.
In a game, maybe, even if it's a preseason
game. Right. I want to see Russell Wilson throw a pass before I'm like, oh, Justin Fields is the starter.
Okay. Well, you know, the reason we're in this position in the first place is because of Sledgate. Bum, bum, bum. The tweet at Trib Sports, Tribune Review Sports, Mark Madden, making Steelers quarterback Russell Wilson push a blocking sled is abject stupidity on the part of Phil Matsutz, the team's new strength and conditioning coach. It's not a stretch to say he should be fired for such idiocracy. What in the, the conditioning test, quarterbacks pushing the blocking sled. Let's send this guy out the door. Someone deserves to be fired.
I will say, having consumed a fair amount of the Steelers' practices and their reports before and after practice over the last week, I've never heard people associated with the Steelers be as willing to make fun of and insult something the team did other than having this quarterback push the sled. Like, I've never seen, like, Wolf, Pursuta, Max Starks, each of them talk about this with nothing but abject contempt and making fun of it. So I get the idea. It was a tremendously bad idea. I hate to say, I wouldn't fire the guy for this, but this is a real, like, you're on thin ice kind of thing. Now, the other part of it, which occurs to me as I say this, it's not like the strength and conditioning coach overruled everyone else.
Yeah, like, no, everyone, like, Arthur Smith, you get in line and push a blocking sled.
Right. Or else Sir Tomlin couldn't be like, hey, wait a minute, this is dumb. Or Russell Wilson, or Arthur Smith, or literally anyone else. I guess it was the phrase high school came up a lot. And mercifully, I didn't play high school football. But yeah, there weren't a lot of quarterbacks hitting the blocking sled. By that same token, I have kind of tried to envision how someone could hit the blocking sled in such a way that they have a calf injury for a week. So that's sort of why I came back to the Tomlin thing about, because Tomlin explicitly said, look, I'm slow walking this. I'm not putting him out there to try and make this as challenging for others as possible. And I hope he's right about that. I hope he's telling the truth about lying before.
First off, any injury, any weird injury is going to have a lot of hindsight. I think about who was it? Sean Sweezum, who got hurt on a tackle once.
Yeah, in the Hall of Fame game at the kickoff of the second half of the Hall of Fame game.
So it's easy in hindsight to be like, what are we, doing? But when we're preaching hustle and do unique things, and it's what you're willing to do, not what you're capable of doing. It's kind of at the same time, both. I can see why they're like, yeah, Russ, hit that blocking sled. Go do the drills and all that. Fortunately, it was minor. It's a minor injury. Look, we just lost the wide receiver on a jet sweep. You could argue, like, why are we rolling up on guys' ankles, this early in padded practice?
Well, that's the other part of it, which I always forget until someone mentions it, is that, the Steelers are maybe one of the last, if not the last, training camp that does this much actual tackling, actual time in pads. But that could be also, hey, maybe why why they're so good in one-score games, but that could also be why, you have rookie wide receivers that are hopefully only out until the season starts.
In one sense, this is I don't want to say a best case scenario, but we were talking all offseason, how are we going to judge Justin and Russ? And it's like, this is the best, a super stupid minor injury. Now we got a week worth of Justin Fields, so we can't complain that it wasn't a real competition, or Justin his feelings are hurt because he's not getting the opportunities. Like, those conversations are out the window.
And minus the second half of what you said, that is very close to what Tomlin said earlier this week about hey, I held Russell out more than I had to off of this injury for this exact scenario. So I think there is some truth to that. I mean, hopefully that's what Tomlin's doing, that he held Russell out so that they could get a better look at Justin. That makes all the sense in the world.
He's a 35-year-old, 9-time Pro Bowler. How much non-padded practice does he really need? If we don't see him hardly until the preseason, and then even minor after that, I'm ready for Russ in week 1, I think.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I mean, I agree with that. And I think the other corollary to what you just said is how much does the 9-time Pro Bowl 35-year-old quarterback have to hit the blocking sled on the first?
We need volunteers, not hostages.
Right? You got to no one's saying,
no. As soon as it said the quarterback's hitting the blocking sled, I could see Russell going to the front saying, I've got this. Like that's just already, I can feel like Russell's that guy.
One more thing on Russ. At Bigfoot's 0169, Jitterbug, Mr. Optimistic. So Russ is still not practicing. He's getting $38 million from the Broncos, $1 million from the Steelers. Think about why be QB1 on an up-and-coming team at this age if you have no matter the BS you're giving to fans, that this is not a long-term situation. Hold your clipboard, collect your money, come in. Is there any... Does this ring true at all? It's like we got to think about who's going to be the quarterback next year. So Justin Fields is 25 compared to 35. Mm-hmm. Russ isn't going to be in the league, or maybe he will. Maybe he does still have 5 more years, but maybe not. Is there any truth to just sit there, collect your check, Russ?
I mean, I'm glad you told me what this tweet means because I could not follow it. I'm so glad you read that out loud and said it just basically means collect the money. I might have been more inclined to agree with the sentiment in this tweet if I hadn't heard the entire summer of Russell Wilson, prospective Pittsburgh mayor, where he's doing everything he can to say, like, hey, I love it here and I want to be here forever playing for this football team. I feel quite confident in saying that this tweet, now that I can parse it, is not at all how Russell Wilson feels, even in the slightest.
Would you, the other thing is, I'm so, with these quarterback salaries, I'm so worried about having to pay a guy $60 million.
Right.
Now
which will happen eventually and will hopefully be a good thing when it does happen, because hopefully that guy's the franchise guy.
Could there be any consideration into saying, hey, we've seen Justin and he's doing pretty well. Let's tie him up here at Latrobe before he hits the market as a $60 million free agent?
Well, a couple things. One, that's the real quarterback battle of the preseason, is for Fields to play well enough for the Steelers to approach him with that deal, and for Fields and his camp to determine, hey, did I play well enough to be that guy that wants to take this deal, or do I think I can do better with the Steelers somewhere else? But the first thing I come back to when what you just said is that, the people that love Tomlin and the people that criticize him all have to agree on one thing. Tomlin is always focused most on winning the next game. And thinking about the quarterback for next year is really not in his DNA. He most likely, I feel confident saying this, that's Khan's job. That's something to have in the back of your mind, but literally in the back. He's thinking about winning this year, so he's not going to put Fields out there or anything like that in terms of sacrificing this year for the next. I mean, you'll never see that. But I could see, hey, if Fields lights it up this preseason, maybe they do approach him with some kind of deal that says, hey, we'll let you stick around, and then what happens with Russell happens with Russell.
Will it be too late by the preseason? You know, it's like as soon as he starts lighting up in the preseason, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, it's Justin Fields, and it's like, is this the time? Is the time? I don't know. You know.
Oh, I mean, maybe I can't make that determination. I doubt they are too. But I remember having not dissimilar conversations about Mason in December, and I mean, not that there's any comparable level on talent between Mason Rudolph and Justin Fields, just in terms of the sheer athleticism. But when we saw what Mason eventually did take to go to Nashville, it's certainly something they could have made work. I mean, we can now see, hey, if the Steelers had wanted to make the Cousins contract work, they could have. You know, it's they could. I mean, with Khan in charge, they could always do what they wanted with the money. Now they really can't.
Yeah,
we can't speculate.
Yeah,
recollate.
I was just me thinking like, I'm just.
Oh no, your concern is valid. I mean, and I think that's I think that's what you're thinking about leads people down the road to Dak Prescott.
Dak, I'd bring back Mason when he gets cut from Tennessee.
Right, when Dobbs goes back to Tennessee and takes Mason's job. Yes.
All right, enough QB talk. Let's talk about receivers.
Why didn't he pick him up and put him down?
We got to pick him up and put him down, says at 93.7 the fan, 93.7 the so-called fan. A Pickens problem? A heated exchange with a coach yesterday, that was day one, and then seemed upset after a play today, that was day two. The diva has arrived. Is this how you know he's a wideout number one? Because he's the diva. On one hand, I don't care about any of this, but on the other hand, it is just practice. Why are we copping attitudes on the first week of practice?
Well, first off, I've been doing this long enough now that when I come across this tweet, I think, oh, I'll be talking about that when we do the podcast. And this tweet was very, very much up there. Secondly, I agree with you. I mean, it's great to have passion. It's you want a guy that wants it, that it matters to him. But also, by that same token, come on, man. I mean, imagine having a coworker like this. You guys are doing your job, and maybe something doesn't go 100% according to plan, and he starts jumping up and down, and the supervisor has to come and yell at him. That's, no matter how talented and good your colleague is, you're going to be a little bit weirded out working with that guy.
Yeah, if anything, I would be like, we've got to find out what we have in all these other guys. Like, if Pickens doesn't get we know what Pickens can do. If he doesn't get all the action in 7-7 or 11-11, like, I want to know what Van Jefferson can do. I want to know what Scotty Miller can do.
Quez Watkins, who's apparently getting on the field less than we thought. And also, maybe this is me being too empathetic and sensitive a person, but geez, I think the seemed upset after play today. I think that's the one where Fields sent it deep to some other guy who was covering and got broken up, and Pickens was open, and Pickens jumped up and down and made a scene. And I would think, geez, I'm making my new colleague feel bad. I mean, it's not like Fields doesn't know after that guy was covered. Pickens was not. That's not exactly going to ingratiate yourself to your new colleague.
We want them to be fat and sassy and spoiled.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. Not fat, but certainly.
Right. Oh yeah, none of those guys are fat. That was something that's come through in the shirtless parts of training camp. Yes.
Mm-hmm. But some people have seen enough. At Steeler Nation. Steeler Nation. Insider says Steelers George Pickens could be the next one traded. Oh, that's how we're going to finally get Brandon Ayuk, because we're trading George Pickens. The quote is from Ray Fittipaldo. This must have been on the fan, right?
I would assume.
The quote is, he's got to see the writing on the wall, right? I mean, they got rid of Deontay Johnson because he was a problem, and George Pickens has to know that if he doesn't turn his act around in a more appropriate manner on and off the field this season, he might be the next guy out the door. On and off. Has he been a problem? Besides the one time he didn't block last season.
Right, which was very much on the field. Like, that's definitely an on the field thing.
And what, off the field is just him getting into it with his coach? I guess
yeah, because you've never heard the slightest bit of like any kind of malfeasance or anything at Pickens, so that seems weird to say off the field. I mean, there is a world where like a year or two from now, I can see them trading Pickens if, like, again, they trade for the big wide receiver and then they draft another one very high, and then they hope that, I guess, both of those guys don't have attitude problems the same as Pickens or worse, and then trade him him away, but I mean, it's happening anytime soon. Like we're getting to the point where Pickens is traded is we're in another parallel dimension. I mean, what would they going to do? They're going to trade him for Kyle Turris and just have like all the best tight ends and no wide receivers. I mean, that's a unique offense.
I could see, like you said, I could see them. He gets to the final year of his contract, and they're like, "We're not going to pay him $30 million. Let's trade him away." And especially since we're going to be paying big bucks for a quarterback soon,
right.
We're just going to have to draft and hope they can respond. That's kind of, again, watching the Hard Knocks with the Giants. They're in the same situation. They're like, they drafted a wide receiver because they don't, the annual price per year on these receivers is just too high.
The market's gone absolutely insane in the last 2 years. Yeah.
And if we're spending $60 million on a quarterback and then $30 million on a wide receiver, and then plus we've got TJ and Minka's salary, it's eventually you run out of money, I guess.
Yes, exactly. Which is why, it helps to have, you need to have the great quarterback. You also need one great receiver. I mean, that's that part of it. I mean, Kelsey still being there with Mahomes made up for Tyreek leaving, but that's you can also keep playing those lottery tickets until you get your own great receiver.
But has Pickens lived up to the hype yet? If you ask at Scarpizio, we're talking about Pickens played in 34 games. He's had less than 5 catches in 25 games. He's had less than 50 yards in 17 games. He's had 6 100-yard games, but averages 41 yards per game in the other 28. He's not consistent enough. I think he's a decent player, but that has a lot of potential. So the stats, I think in the first 2 years, though, he's on relatively the same pace as like a Santonio Holmes.
Yeah, you kind of beat me to it. This guy, I mean, I've read this Twitter account a few times, and if this is the same person I'm thinking of that's had their fair amount of criticisms of Kenny Pickett, then it kind of shows like this is how you argue from bad faith. Because you can also have that tweet that says like all these terrible stats about Kenny and like, oh, he's not good. And then you can also make this same argument and as if those two things aren't in some way connected. I mean, I also of these stats, you'll notice the fast and loose here. Well, how different were they with Mason in that last month? And you could say like, oh, well, he didn't catch any in the Baltimore game. Right, because he was double teamed. Yeah. Which the Ravens knew to do, and what happened when he was double-teamed, DJ caught that long touchdown in what was real monsoon conditions that to this day, Steelers media and reporters talk about they probably shouldn't have played that game. So, I look, that's not to say that Pickens is the next truly great receiver. I think he has all the talent in the world, and you do have to build this next offensive air game around him. But yeah, I think he's more than a decent player, but he does still have far more potential than he has to this point production.
But you have to look at who was throwing the ball. Right. It was Kenny Pickens.
You have to look at all these things. Yeah.
Mitch Trubisky. It's like, oh, he only had 600-yard games. We weren't throwing 300-yard games. You know, so
right. Yeah, exactly.
So maybe with Russ. I mean, this is a breakout year for him, no matter what. Right. He's the number one, and there is no number 2 hardly, or we don't know yet.
I mean, I think it's Freiermuth. At this point, even if they do bring somebody in, I think it's Freiermuth again. Unless, we'll probably get to that.
But even the video game people have something to say. At @A_Saunders_PGH, Alan Saunders, Steelers wideout George Pickens has an 83 overall rating in Madden 25, tied for the 33rd best in the NFL. Now, do you feel he's 33rd best wideout? I mean, maybe if there's a large pack of, 15 to 20 in that pack,
Yeah, I mean, I could see a large part of 15 to 20. And also, I don't know, are we including... Because, again, I haven't played Madden since PlayStation 1. Are we including tight ends in this as well? Because if so, then we definitely getting to 33. Then I'm fine with 33. I would have them like 20 to 26. So, I mean, without having named all these guys out. So, I mean, it's not crazy to me. But it does still feel low. It does sound like EA, when they were doing the ratings, read that previous guy's tweet.
Yeah, they were. I mean, right, if he's the number one, then you would think he's top 32 at least, right?
Right. Well, I mean, and also, too, I mean, Evan said, well, what's Deontay Johnson's rating? I mean, what was he?
Good point.
You know, the last season they had for this. I can see if I'm, the objective math football wizards at Electronic Arts sitting down and not in good conscience rating the Steelers' passing game all that high. I mean, that makes sense to me, too.
Yeah,
if I'm making a national game, like it, I don't think, I've never heard, I mean, look, I don't really pay attention to all this stuff, but I haven't heard a lot of controversies that the Steelers players have been rated too high by EA.
Never.
Right.
But, the only way to go is up because of the new training situation from at Brian Batko. Brian Batko. Steelers receivers aren't just sitting their butts in chairs during training camp drills. And I don't know, this isn't show the video, it's just a still.
Please explain to me what this was, because I tried watching it, and it's one of those rare times I'm looking at something and being like, I don't know what I'm looking at.
My only guess is it's either teaching them to get low leverage or to keep their arms. I see that their elbows are rested on the chair. Maybe it has something to do with keep your arms in. I don't know. There has to be. There's a reason for this.
Right. Oh, right. Exactly. Yes. Exactly. Yeah, no, but the fact that, but I think I said it in that same tone when I was describing it, when I was trying to figure out, like, well, there's got to be a reason this is happening. And this, I mean, and again, this seems more intelligent than the quarterback pushing the blocking sled, but there does seem to be, I mean, the other thing I wondered about, if by having the chair there, that artificial thing that forces you to be more spread out, maybe that's what it was too. Maybe it's about getting your legs further apart. Maybe it's about getting used to that posture. But also, I'm coming back to, why do you need to do that as wide receiver? But I don't know. I mean, this wide receiver coach seems to be very well thought of and has done a good job in other places. But yeah, the chair exercise is a new one for me.
It's like it kind of looks like Pete Rose's batting stance or
yeah,
something.
I mean, it looks, I mean, it does look like an unnatural posture, which I think could make sense why they're doing it, trying to get you used to that. But I'm also like, I don't know where you would use this. I mean, I haven't seen a lot of clips of like Lynn Swann in this pose from the 70s. Like, I'm confused.
Yeah, bring back the ballerina. I want to see the guys in the ballet class. Wait, we still have more wide receiver talk.
Uh-oh.
From at Carney Media, Trey Carney. If you watched or heard about the offense during the first day of Steelers training camp, I think you'll understand why there isn't a rush to find a wideout too. Muth was hauling in many targets, and Smith showed he loves multiple tight end sets. I think they're content with either Wilson or Calvin Austin III taking the role when it's said and done. I mean, what about Van Jefferson?
Right, Van Jefferson, or the fact that Wilson is now hurt until the regular season, the rookie. Yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we already kind of touched on it a little bit. Muth is second to potential. I mean,
I think Muth is the de facto second receiver up until proven otherwise. But it does seem, that was always kind of the way the Arthur Smith thing might play out. It's just, I mean, it's just hard for me to believe. And again, look, I'm some guy watching these things. But if I'm the defensive coordinator for the Bengals, does Freiermuth really keep me from double teaming Pickens? Does he keep me from rolling everything to Pickens and just letting Freiermuth beat me? I don't know about that. Maybe, hopefully, but I don't know.
Yeah, can he run with a corner? I mean, I guess, the size-wise he can, but speed-wise, I don't, I mean,
right.
they should be able to cover him. I don't know. But now that we have a wide receiver hurt at Steelers Network, Steelers really, really, really need to go and get themselves a wideout now, especially now that Roman Wilson is going to be down for majority of the summer. I'm not talking about another journeyman. No. They need an impact player. Unfortunately, it takes two to tango in a deal, and that's why it's tough to do. Are we more? I mean, we did sign some. I think we signed a journeyman.
Yes,
but we
got several journeyman. There are already guys to take a journey.
How bad do we need another wideout in light of the Wilson injury?
Well, I think they needed another wideout before the Wilson injury. So, like, the Wilson injury doesn't at all help. But if there's one thing we've learned in the Khan regime is that they do not act out of a position of desperation. So I'd be surprised if they rush on Ginza. But I think each of us, or I don't know, all of us, I don't want to speak for everybody, but there is a feeling that the Khan is waiting for something to happen, waiting for that perfect deal for a second wide receiver. And, we're certainly, if so, then we're waiting a lot longer than I would have been comfortable waiting. Which is
never say never, but never.
Right.
Never. Oh, well, it's just, the closer we get to September 8th, the higher the price is on one of these trades, I think. And the whole moving train aspect.
Yes.
It's like, even if we get, a Brandon Ayuk, with 1 week of practice, is he going to be able to learn the playbook and all that? And, we've got moving train.
I could see somebody decent being cut. I mean, that's not crazy to me, but even then, that guy's going to be a literal journeyman because he'll have been cut somewhere else.
Yeah. I mean, if we haven't got it already, it's like, was it a blown opportunity, or did they just not pursue it? That, I guess, is the $1 million question.
Right. That we won't find out until another several years from now. The pivot, someone else's book, etc.
One more thing. Oh, maybe I'm burying the lead here on.
There it is. I was waiting for this tweet to show up.
At the Pony Express, Andrew Filipponi. A source tells DK Pittsburgh Sports that the Steelers are convinced they're trading for Brandon Ayuk, DK Metcalf, or Tyreek Hill. What? I mean, usually DK doesn't go out on a limb with stuff like this, but a source tells him that it could be Tyreek Hill?
I told Chris Halicki, DK's Steelers guy, who was, and this was part of the Friday Insider, which is the one, if you read DK Pittsburgh Sports, is the once a week where they're like, hey, this is a thing a guy told us. But yeah, this was, I read this as soon as I was posted. I think I said, what? Out loud in my bedroom alone. And, I think this is what a lot of Steelers fans had always hoped was happening, that somebody was saying this exact thing the Insider is saying, which makes me wonder, is this really happening? But, Metcalf isn't crazy.
Yeah.
Ayuk is mostly crazy, and Tyreek Hill is utterly insane. Because I think he's still owed how much of his $120 million contract? I mean, they could make it work financially. They really could. And, there's been a lot of talk about if they traded for Ayuk, how would it sit with, having the highest paid player on the team be this wide receiver who just came in. Well, they would all understand if it was Tyreek. Yeah. They would absolutely be fine with that. The guy that they, running away in Super Bowls and carrying the Dolphins on his back when he was healthy. But yeah, that would be in an off, and unless 2 years of just nutty things happening, that would be the nuttiest.
I mean, that would be like, it's like when Ricky Williams was traded to the Saints or something. Wouldn't they need that kind of haul to get, it would be like a first and then another first or something, or a second and another second.
I mean, that's what you'd think, but I don't know. I mean, because it's weird, because I feel like of these three guys, Tyreek is the one you've heard the least amount about being tradable or traded. I mean, I've heard the argument is the Dolphins either had to give a big contract to the other guy, or they're going to have to give a big contract to the other guy who is younger and healthier. What's it, Waddle? I don't know. I forget the guy's name.
Yeah.
Okay, so then that's the argument for why they unload Tyreek for pennies on the dollar, which at $120 million is still a lot of pennies.
That is a reasonable expectation.
Yeah, unreasonable contract, unreasonable trade. I'd rather sign Juju. I'd rather bring back Juju. I don't know. That's not a needle moving move, but even Ayuk, it's expensive. It's I don't know. I keep thinking about the next year's quarterback contract.
Right. Oh yeah. No. Which looms, but also looms after the season, and they've shown that they're willing to remake this entirely in the dirt again if the quarterback thing doesn't work out. So I'm sure they're fine. They're not fine, but they could do it another time. But yeah, because it feels like this is a big flaw the team has, and it feels like taking any of these big swings might lead to other unforeseen other flaws.
Yeah, I can't, Minka is the only situation I can think that comes close to something like that. And that was shocking in the moment. It was like, whoa, we did what? It's on a year where Ben was hurt, so But hey, never say never. I
Not
think
anymore.
All right, let's talk about some more camp odds and
Training
ends.
camp is Kennywood for me.
Okay, all right, Coach. How about at Alex Kozora? Alex Kozora. We'll be able to evaluate O-line play tomorrow, whenever this was. But off the top, they got to clean up the penalties. Steelers have 9 false starts through 4 practices. In the last couple of weeks, I've been worried about this young O-line, and this seems to be evidence. They're running laps now for false starts, and they're all doing it. McCormick, Washington, Daniels. I don't know who B. Jones is. Oh, Broderick Jones. Duh. They're all running laps for false starts, and I'm just thinking, how far can this offense go? It just reminds me of 2021 all over again, and I'm worried about that.
Right. I mean, these guys have a lot more pedigree than the guys in 2021 did. I mean, there's a lot more talent there, but there is a lot more youth. I mean, I did hear in the last day or so they had a whole day without anyone running laps. Hopefully that's because they cleaned up the penalties and not just because they're like, look, we can't have you guys running laps all the time. I mean, otherwise we won't have a practice. But, I mean, I some of this makes sense. The rookie guard who's definitely a backup this year, getting the most of them. Sure, McCormick, that makes sense. But yeah, Daniels, the most experienced guy. Broderick Jones, that's bad. At Falatano. I mean, if these not like a lot of other things, we'll probably be saying early in the season, if this is as bad as it gets mistake-wise, we'll be okay. However, should it continue, then no, it won't be okay.
You know whose name isn't on the false start list? Mr. Dan Moore Jr.
That's right. Unless he's unknown, but even then, I feel like Kozora would have been able to pick out Dan Moore Jr.
So, point for him, I guess.
Absolutely.
For having these hot quarterback takes. Where's the hot Dan Moore takes? He's gonna win the job.
I don't know. After Tomlin had Falatano against TJ 3 times and Falatano beat him twice, that might be that's a clear sign when Tomlin asked for that matchup.
Okay, let's. How about this O-line take? Ooh. At Steeler Nation, insider claims Zach Frazier won't be the starting center anytime soon.
Of course not. He's going out in the George Pickens trade. The two of them are going out to bring in Tyreek.
And Herbig is saying he's fighting for that starting center job.
For him. He should say that.
What, when is the expectation was week 1 starter, but is that, did we have too high of expectations? If he doesn't start week 1, is that bad on him or just bad on the fans for thinking that?
I'm also, I have to look at this revelation or this thought as much as anything else after 1 week of no pads no week of no pads and 1 day of pads. Yeah. I'm not saying he's not going to be the starter by then. What I am confident in saying is that he's not going to be Marquise Pouncey by then, or even the way Pouncey was in camp. I mean, those stories you would hear then were bizarre. Roethlisberger going privately up to Tomlin, or not even privately, and being like, hey, I want to snap with Pouncey since that guy's clearly going to start for this team. We're not hearing that. So I think that is a pretty clear sign that, he's not going to be all pro immediately, but I'm not rolling him out from starting early. Although, again, having a guy with a year or 2 experience starting the first game isn't the worst thing. But just because I like to think that I evolve and that I adapt and I change as I get older and I understand more about this game and I've seen more around it. And I think I feel better about this kind of thing after last season. That really kind of changed the way I thought when Broderick Jones didn't come in for the first half of the season. But when he did, man, was he good. And I think, and so I'm willing to give others who maybe don't have that much talent but do have that kind of youth that benefit of that doubt.
And we keep saying, we want these rookies to start. But if I'm the Browns or the Ravens and I'm like, all I want is to feed on a rookie O-line. And that couldn't be more what our opponents want too, probably.
Oh, certainly. I mean, that's that's a conundrum. Do you put out the most talented people or the most experienced people that you have? And it's at hope at some point talent wins out, since inevitably in football it seems to. But yeah, at the very beginning, that's a real question.
It's good to see the big boy.
We need, let's see. One more thing about camp. If the tweet, hey, thank you, at @Saunders_PGH, Alan Saunders. I wrote today that the opportunity Beanie Bishop has gotten as an undrafted free agent has been unprecedented. Now that the Steelers have released Josiah Scott, slot corner is Beanie's job to lose. The Beanie Bishop bandwagon is getting heavier and heavier.
Yes.
But does it have anything to do, we released Josiah Scott, but is that more probably reflecting on his performance at camp and not what Beanie Bishop has done so far?
I can't help but think it's both. I mean, the way no one can remember, from what I've read and heard, an undrafted free agent getting this much play this early. I mean, this is different. I mean, that's not to say that Beanie Bishop is going to be this all-pro Rod Woodson-like guy. What it does mean is that Beanie Bishop is going to play, probably the 10 snaps or more, probably more, that this position does, while also playing pretty fair amount of special teams. But yeah, it has been, I don't want to use the word weird, but it has been weird how much it's just like, oh, Beanie Bishop's on this defense now as the starting slot corner. Okay. It's been kind of jarring. It really has.
And just the coronation. It's
like
it's been
instant.
That's unprecedented. I don't not since
I don't know,
say
Darren Perry.
Maybe.
Yeah, well, yeah, Tuzar. No, you're right. I mean, Tuzar Skipper. It's I remember the fanfare when he got on that thing and then he was cut the next day.
Yeah,
that was amazing. But I mean, the only thing that comes close is Darren Perry, who was the 7th round or undrafted free agent and went right in as a starter. I want to say that was Cowher's first year, but yeah, I mean, it's the Beanie Bishop. They're like, yeah, this guy's great, good. It's. I hope it's not dressing Kendrick Green like when they dressed Kendrick Green and Marquise Pouncey's clothes and said this is good. Doing the same thing with Hilton and Beanie, but yeah, it's been something.
Let's talk about my coach.
Mike Tomlin eat chicken wings.
He does. The tweets. We got celebratory Tomlin tweets this week. I'm loving it. Let's start with at Kyle Beagle. Mike Tomlin seems to have newfound motivation, says Bryant McFadden. Now, the quote, it was a little convoluted, but he was just kind of saying that the way he's rebuilt this offensive line and after talking to him at camp, he's got newfound motivation. Is it because... I mean, what? Because they kind of whiffed on Kenny, and now he's like, we're still gonna build back stronger. Is it because he's got these great quarterbacks that kind of fell into his lap? I mean, what makes him more motivated this year than say last year?
Well, I mean, my first thought is that I bump a bit against the idea. I don't think Tomlin lacked for motivation last year. I think Tomlin has been reinvigorated or perhaps gotten more invigorated by the idea of trying new uncomfortable things. I mean, Tomlin speaks so much about doing that which is uncomfortable, and in the last year, he's really shown it. He's lived up to it. This cannot be comfortable. I mean, we just had a long conversation about Beanie Bishop. There's no way that was comfortable for Tomlin.
Yeah.
Putting this 5'9" undrafted kid from West Virginia in his starting defense on the first day of training camp. There's just no way. It was probably even more uncomfortable at the parts no one got to see it. OTAs and minicamp and whatever else. So he's got the all new quarterbacks. He's made so many changes that while it's, he can talk all about embracing change and trying new things. This is a guy that, has had a good thing for a long time, and Roethlisberger and a lot of veterans. So I can see all this change invigorating him, but it's hard for me to believe that Tomlin did not have motivation in the last few years.
Everybody else gets a little tight.
You're right. He's never gotten too tight. And yeah, I mean, I guess the speculation was that, he's kind of wrapping things up. But now that he got that extension and, the Kenny thing wasn't the coronation that we thought it might be. And, I don't know. Maybe, he wants to win that playoff game.
I think he wants another ring. And I also, it hit me the other day. Tomlin never built a franchise quarterback.
Yeah,
I mean, of
true.
all the things he's done, that's one he absolutely has not done. He hasn't built a franchise quarterback. He hasn't, I mean, I do not believe at all he won with college players. That's not at all true. But he did inherit Ben.
Yeah.
So, and that's not to say that his career is entirely defined by building a franchise quarterback. But man, it sure helps.
This is a little old, but it just came on my radar, and I think it's important. So
Please.
Let's go to @New Heights Show. New Heights. This is Travis and Jason Kelsey. They had Alejandro Villanueva on, and is Mike Tomlin selling himself short? And what's he talking about? So this is the quote from Pro Bowl left tackle AV.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tomlin is one of a kind. I think sometimes I get a little pissed off when I see him because I know that he can have a much bigger role in society than being a head coach. He's got incredible leadership skills, incredible charisma.
Mike Tomlin selling himself short?
100% he's selling himself short. 100%, that's for sure. But I think he sees people for where they're from.
Mm-hmm.
Coach Tomlin was somebody who believed in coaching. He believed in being a part of your success story. And so for me, obviously, I can attest to that.
Yeah.
But he's also incredibly interested in geography and where people are from within the United States.
So, I've said this before, like he might, is he selling himself short? Only because I think, he could probably run for Senate and be a great leader like that. But also he loves geography. So
a few things here stand out. One, I'm glad you told me you put up the Alejandro Villanueva episode, because at this point Alejandro has gotten himself into such shape and lost so much weight I did not recognize him between the Kelseys. Secondly, I mean, that's wonderful to hear. Tomlin was the guy. I mean, isn't that the legendary Villanueva story? They were in a preseason game. They were standing up for the pledge, and Tomlin looked across the field and asked, "Who's that guy? The guy that was bigger than everyone else? What's going on? Could we, And then they ended up getting him and bringing him over. I mean, if he were ever to do so, I mean, I'm not saying Tomlin would be given the same amount of money that Brady or Breeze got to do NFL broadcasting, but it would be in that neighborhood. I mean, that is not a higher calling, but man, if you wanted to cash in, he absolutely could. That idea that Tomlin, it's someone with so much charisma and a genuine understanding of leadership, which Villanueva touches on here. It really does involve people and knowing people and wanting to be a part of their lives in a positive way. I don't know if it's selling himself short by being, one of the highest paid coaches in the National Football League, well on his way to the Hall of Fame. But I think it does speak to, and it's always good for a new audience to hear this, particularly maybe the Kelsey's audience doesn't always hear this, is that there are other avenues that Tomlin's life could have taken and in all likelihood will take when his coaching career does finally end. Because I don't see him doing, Marv Levy, Don Shula, sticking in Pittsburgh till his 80s. That I find that hard to believe. But
I think it's going to be, the kids are becoming adults. I think as soon as the grandkids start, I think that is when, I think I wouldn't be surprised if that's when he calls it.
I mean, or it could be, look at Cowher. I mean, when he won that championship, after that, then he started to think about it. I could see Tomlin wins again, or Tomlin builds his quarterback. I could see him starting to ride off in the sunset. And as he said, he's closer to the end than the beginning. But I think we're still a ways from that end.
Yeah, I could see the perfect booth, maybe Peyton Manning, Tomlin, and bring back Dennis Miller. More Tomlin.
Okay. Here we go.
Coach Tomlin, Mike Tomlin. What an amazing day having the legendary Smokey Robinson at practice. Can't even express what an honor it was to get to meet him. And Smokey didn't come to the locker room in Pittsburgh. He had to make the 50-minute drive out to Latrobe. And I was just like, why? Is Smokey Robinson even a Steelers fan? He's from Motown, right? Detroit. And luckily, Steelers.com asked him that same question.
Well, first of all, I love the Steelers, man. And my wife is from Pittsburgh, and I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, And I got a chance to have a dream come true today because I got a chance to meet Mike Tomlin in person. So I'm very happy. Well, I told him, I've always been a Steelers fan, and I'm a big fan of his, man. I just think he's accomplished so much, and I'm so proud of him. And so I love him. And like I said, it was a great pleasure to get a chance to just meet him in person.
He loves him. Like the Smokey Robinson.
It was a dream of Smokey Robinson's to meet Tomlin.
How many times, it's like these people go out of their way. No one, Smokey Robinson didn't have to go to that level of accolades.
No,
he loves him and he's so proud of him. And why can't Steelers fans see that? It's, he's obviously not in Pittsburgh. He's somewhere else. It's like everyone outside of Pittsburgh adores him. But here in Steelers, 7 years without a playoff win and blah, blah, blah. And I don't know, just more testimonial. I think everyone needs to hear it. Every time they heap praise on him like that, we need to listen. Steeler fans refuse to hear it. This was wild, this level of affection. I think.
It was, but could you imagine being stuck in traffic on the way to training camp and you're sitting in your car and you say, hey, is that Smokey Robinson in the car in front of us? Is that what? No, I can't be. Yeah, but look at him.
That's it's not the same as like Elvis, but on a level,
it's pretty close. Yeah. I mean, it's Elvis can't make it out to training camp this year, so that's probably about as close as you can get. No, I mean it's weird that Tomlin is as a civic treasure. He seems more a national one than a Pittsburgh treasure, despite the fact he very much should be a Pittsburgh treasure.
Yeah, you said it. Like the Beatles looked up to Smokey Robinson in Motown, so to think that he looks up to Mike Tomlin. Enough said. All right. Let's move on past the Ogunjobi Zen wisdom. That's all cute and that, but we're going long. I think. Let's go.
Okay.
Let's go to the Hall of Honor.
Okay.
Let's go back to @Coach Tomlin. Congratulations to this incredible group of Steelers legends who made up this year's Hall of Honor class. You can't go wrong with a group that includes Casey Hampton, Jason Gilden, Dick LeBeau, and Willie Parker. Fantastic men who deserve this honor. Yes, okay, great. They all deserve it. They're all greats. Super Bowl, well, besides Jason Gilden, they're Super Bowl champs.
Certainly.
Is it too early for Willie Parker? I just think that I was listening to all the commentary. Art Rooney talked with
Pompiani was there.
Pompiani and who was the other in the glasses?
I forget. Was it Labriola?
Labriola,
okay.
Yeah. And so, I was just like, what's the reason? I was looking for the reason why it was Willie Parker. Because, according to Pro Football Reference, Willie Parker is 75th on Steelers all time, behind guys like Kimo von Oelhoffen and Max Starks and Marvell Smith, Craig Wolfley, Darren Perry, Gary Anderson, even Le'Veon Bell. So the fact that he goes in before some of those names, I mean, he had 2 Pro Bowl seasons. He had of course, the Super Bowl touchdown. I think he has the Steelers record for most 200-yard games in a season.
And he's still towards the top of their all-time rushing stats, though.
Third all-time rushing, although Le'Veon Bell has more total yards.
Right, because Le'Veon caught the ball a lot. Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm just, why? Does it have to do with him giving back to the community? But I don't know if we've seen that necessarily. I just don't. Is it, what do you think is the rationale for Willie Parker above some of these other, before Kirkland, before, Marquise Pouncey?
I don't know how many years you have to be retired before they do this, because I could see that being a question with Pouncey, who absolutely will get in. I'd always thought from the beginning the idea of the Hall of Honor was their answer to the players that don't get into the Hall of Fame. It's the old joke. I mean, he doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. He belongs in the Hall of Very Good.
Yeah.
And this is the Steelers building their own Hall of Very Good. And I was surprised to see Parker among these other names. I thought if you got into the NFL Hall of Fame, you automatically got into the Hall of Honor, which a lot of them have. I mean, if you've seen the number of Steel footballs in the Hall of Honor, that's kind of how it works. I am surprised they specifically did it for Dick LeBeau, but there's nothing wrong with honoring Dick LeBeau again, as we've learned on this podcast. Parker surprised me a bit over some of the names, but third all-time rushing with the Steelers. The seasons he had, I mean, if he doesn't break his leg against the Rams, he's the rushing champion that year, which I don't know if the Steelers have ever had that. So I see the argument for him getting in, but I also see the argument for having other guys ahead of him get in ahead of him, namely Kirkland. I think that's a big one. I think Kirkland, maybe the best Steelers linebacker of the 90s, and that's even with Green in the Hall of Fame. But yeah, I was so glad to see Gilden get in.
Yeah,
but yeah, Parker. Parker was the only one that I did kind of look at it a bit dogs and a fan. But the third all time and the Super Bowls and the 200 yards, I can live with it. But I would have thought they'd pick more than 4. I mean, it doesn't even the actual NFL do like 6 at least.
I think, listen to Art. I think they might be limited it right now at 4. They've got 50. These is like 54 now with these guys. So,
okay.
They're kind of, I don't want to say they're running out, but they're
not running out.
These are the highest ranked Steelers, according to Pro Football Reference, that are not in yet. Big Ben.
Which is probably a time thing, yeah.
AB, who knows?
Yeah, a big asterisk.
Marquise Pouncey.
Could be a time thing, too.
Levon Kirkland, then Lawrence Timmons, Joey Porter, David DeCastro. Let's go to the 80s. David Little, Robin Cole, and then Brett Kiesel. That's the 10
Okay,
next.
but I've seen... I feel very confident in saying, having been when it was Heinz Field, and they had the lockers of the players in the past, they had something for Little. I feel like that was the locker next to Tunch's, although I could be wrong. So I guess I'd always confuse that with the Hall of Honor. But yeah, I think each of those names, plus or minus AB, are going to be in there soon. Timmons, eventually, because he was so consistent for so long.
Yeah.
And he does have the championship, even if it happened his rookie year. But yeah, I can see that. But yeah, I mean, if that's all that's out there, that's not. And again, a lot of those, it may be a eligibility thing in terms of years between Ben and the Castro and Pouncey. Which again, this is something they make up. It's not like there's some bylaws that they don't control. They could do whatever they wanted with this. So,
no, the committee. The committee's like Art, Labriola. I don't even know who else.
I think the committee's the people that run Steelers.com.
Yeah,
it's not. This wasn't in the Constitution. So I think eventually you will see all of those names in there. Yeah, maybe that's a thing. Maybe they want to make sure they have 4 guys every year, so they keep spreading it out, and that's how you could start. Like, oh yeah, we're putting Dick LeBeau in again. Like,
Well, I mean, it's not. They're all. You can't say there's any bad choices, but
right.
I still kind of.
No, but I see your point. Parker being the one that's a little bit like, huh.
I mean, why not Barry Foster? I mean, yeah, I think he led the AFC in rushing one year. So
yeah,
I mean,
Cowher's first year he did.
Whatever.
And they got blown out in that playoff game. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think the band is trying to take the field, but there's a fight. Look out for a Landon Roberts on the field. Did you see his? I saw his picture. He had the big old smile.
Big smile. That was. I forget. Someone commented underneath that. If you're in an altercation with somebody and they make this face, run.
Yeah. Okay. One last thing. Whoa. At Sharky's Pier, the pier at Sharky's. Okay, here we go. Wolfley's Revenge is born. We've got a white pizza with brout, onion rings, fried pierogies, bacon, cheddar, fresh jalapenos, and brown mustard. And then they roll it up like a burrito or a calzone.
Oh, my word.
I might have been on board with this Craig Wolfley pizza if not for the brown mustard.
I mean, it just seems it's like 2 or 3 too many things. Like it's I mean, do you really need onion rings on a pizza? It's just, I mean, onion's great. I love onion, but I mean, now you're just doing carbs on top of carbs. It's not like you're getting, that onion ring taste in the middle of everything else that's happening here. The onion rings aren't providing a taste. The onion is. So, I mean, that feels ridiculous. Same thing goes with the fried pierogies. I mean, it's just different kinds of bread. I mean, that's just like, that's asinine. But everything else does add something. The jalapenos, the cheddar, the bacon, the broth. So I guess I could see it, and I'm saying this like I would ever eat this thing, but I could see it without the pierogies and the onion rings, since that's too much. I am so struck by this picture though. It's like they were afraid to get the camera too close to it. They had to take it from like 7 feet away. I'm like, oh, this pizza's very small, and then I saw this person's hands. Well, I guess it's not all that big, huh? If they're gonna roll it up, it almost just like a burrito. It's not that big unless this person has enormous hands that are right by the phone, right?
Well, they had to make it for under $40 a pizza, so yeah, it's a personal size.
Right? Yeah. You're getting the old Pizza Hut. You're getting the one like they used to get at the cafeteria at school.
Mm-hmm. You want to slice the brout too. It looks like they've got a sausage link in there. So you want to slice it. Like I don't want a big take a big bite and get potatoes from the pierogi and then a big chunk of broth.
Right, and it shows, that they're just, and also you'll just happen to note the broth exactly extends across the size of this pizza to show you again, like Kyle said, so this thing isn't $200 a pop. But I mean, it feels like, and this happens every year in spring training in baseball. Every city comes out with their ridiculous thing for you to eat. And, 2 people buy it once a year and go into cardiac arrest or whatever. So this just happens to be theirs. I can't imagine they'll sell many of these, but probably selling 1 or 2 probably gets you over the hump.
Something to get, all those cars lined up at Latrobe. It's like, how do we get people into here? Like, it's the biggest, it's like a game day at Penn State when the population becomes 100,000. It's like, we got to get these people into the restaurant somehow. Mm-hmm. So I get it. I would try it. If not, I would say no mustard. Just like I say no kraut on my no coleslaw on my permanis, but does that make me not a yinzer? I guess
no.
I don't.
No, you're still very yinzer-fied.
Yeah, I've got the waistline to prove it.
That's what we've been talking about.
I guess so. I guess that's what we've been talking about. Hopefully, we keep going long lately, but I guess it doesn't matter when we're completely independent. And completely irreverent and irrelevant. Next week could be a special episode next week. Hoping we're gonna there's this new biography about Myron Cope, Behind the Yoy, and we're gonna have the author on. He's collaborated with Cope's daughter, so there should be unseen archival materials and etc. That's coming out on September 1st, and we're planning on having him next week. I hope he doesn't ghost me. But in the meanwhile, we can keep the conversation going on social media. I'm on them all, but I'm not. I don't always check. I'm definitely not on Facebook. I'm definitely rarely checking Instagram. But if I'm on Twitter and I am on TikTok at Kyle Kreis. So keep it going. I appreciate those who have been hitting me up who've attended camp and wanted to hit me up and tell me that Najee is not being very social, even among his teammates, apparently. What about you, Greg, on socials?
Unfortunately, you can find me at Instagram at Greg Benevent, B as in boy, E-N-E, V as in Victor, E-N-T.
Until next week, when I'm sure by then Fields will be on the hot seat and Russ will be in the hall. Keep listening to your coach.
Be their best selves. That's going to be required.
Stay in school.